States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you. With respect to the agenda, one item inadvertently dropped off, and so what I want to do is add back on with respect to the 4 properties that we said we'd discuss again tonight. I think a number of the property owners are here. I'll put that in, propose to put in at the very first item of discussions.
Make a motion to accept the
I'll second.
edited agenda.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. So do I have a motion to adopt the
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Minutes.
as amended? Yeah.
Minutes, sorry.
Okay,
minutes.
as
Yeah,
amended.
I was just accepting the amendment. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Now do I have a motion to acknowledge the minutes from our last meeting of, what was it? The
I'll make a
21st
motion
of
to
August.
approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Next part will be to open to the public discussions on, the agenda items. So do I have a motion to open for public discussion?
So moved.
Okay, motion.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. So if any member of the public here, tonight would like to comment on any aspect, please come on up, identify yourself. Mr. O'Donnell.
My name is Craig O'Donnell. I live at 640 Wheeler Hill Road. I have 2 properties that I own on my street that are vacant, and they're both approved for to have a well drilled on them by the health department. Fully approved, everything. So in lieu of drilling a well, I'm requesting that I be able to tie into the water that's right in the front yard of both properties. There's curb box there, no disturbance to the blacktop, and that'll alleviate drilling a well into the aquifer in my local neighborhood.
So we have those properties, are they correctly listed in the record? Or is, one was, 940, and the other one's 980?
693 and 640.
693 and
640?
640, and I think it's actually 642, is it? No? And 640 is correct? Okay.
No.
Now,
I want to make sure.
so, I mean, there's one thing that's a little strange on 640.
Can I?
Sure.
There is no 911 address
Okay.
for the 640 property. 640 is the house that I live in.
Right.
I own the property next to it, but until the building permit is filed, you have to apply for a 911 address.
Right.
So I call it 638,
Okay.
which would be the common
Yes.
number for the street
Yeah.
address,
I
but
mean, the
until
only
that's
thing that
done.
I
However, I did put the parcel,
right, so that, I can amend that, but, the one question that I had is, with respect to your house on 640 doesn't technically, that lot technically doesn't have frontage on Wheeler Hill Road, so I don't know.
the reason for the address at 640 Wheeler Hill Road is because the driveway comes on the Wheeler Hill Road.
But if you develop the other parcel, right?
That's on Wheeler Hill Road also.
Okay, I mean, but 640 right now, your house has a driveway out to Troy,
Jim.
Old Troy.
Hold on. We're confusing this whole thing.
No, I'm
That's the
not,
reason I'm here.
I understand that.
Yes, I have property on Old Troy Road and Wheeler Hill Road. I live at 640 Wheeler Hill Road. The reason it's the address, that's the 911 address that was assigned to that property. I also own the property next to it, which
Right.
is on Wheeler Hill Road. It is not on Old Troy Road.
Right,
However, a 911 address has not been
Correct.
assigned to that property. So in lieu of that, I've identified it with the tax grid number.
sure,
So you guys can call it whatever you want.
right.
But it's the tax grid number.
So
And
you're
then I
not-
also own 693
Okay,
down next to my old house.
correct.
And there's the same exact thing. There's a curb box in the front yard. So what I'm requesting is to tie into the water there instead of drilling a new well, along with the other one, which is, there's a curb box in the front
Correct.
yard, asking to tie into that. That's it.
So you're not asking for a connection for your house?
Not to my existing house, no. I have
Okay.
a very functioning well there that
Okay.
I'm very
So
happy with.
2 vacant lots then?
I'm sorry?
2 vacant lots then,
2
correct?
vacant lots, yep.
With no house on it?
Neither one of them have a house on it. There was a house on 693. but that's
693, I
been
know, they
demolished.
took it down a couple of years ago, yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks for the
Any
clarification.
questions? Questions? No?
Okay,
No questions?
no,
Okay, good, thanks.
thank you. Any other comments?
Marcy Wagman, 50 Old Troy Road. I would like to comment on the 3 resolutions providing water service to properties in the town of Wappinger. Because of the structure of the board's agenda, and there was no previous public discussion, the context and specifics and data is based on assumptions and inferences that may be incorrect, so forgive me if I'm making incorrect assumptions. And my comments tonight aren't really about the specifics of the water connections that we're talking about this evening, but really focus on the fairness and precedence setting of these exceptions and the rates being set for the 3rd resolution. I've sat through these meetings for several years now, and setting aside the request where a resident has an emergency need for their home, these requests appear to be ad hoc, with little discussion of the use and expected amount of the water to be used, what fees, including the buy-in fees, which, by the way, have been waived in several instances when we've connected to the water system, no protocols for metering or the fees discussed, and what the implications are for the neighbors, and why the properties to be connected have priority over other taxpayers. I also want to speak to the fairness of the approach, and while I understand that other homeowners who own property near the New Hamburg water line were told that they could not connect to the water line, and they would have been here tonight, except it's back to school night tonight. So I'm not sure why some property owners are able to be connected to the water line, but others are not, and others may not even understand what their options are given their proximity to the water line. So my feeling is that this should be much more visible to residents to ensure equity in the services provided to them. And I'm not sure when we discussed the reduction in water rates in one of the resolutions, how that was determined and how that compares to rates that other users are paying. By the way, the New York Times recently published an extensive study pointing out that the United States is using groundwater at a faster rate than the groundwater is being replenished. And while we are blessed in the Northeast with good quality water and not in an area of immediate concern, we are not exempt, especially if we remember the drought last summer, from needing to ensure that the resources are well managed. And while the engineer for Camo can say we've got lots of water, understanding the rate and pace of growth, the expected use, the number of connections both for residential, multifamily, and commercial, we need to model all of that and understand where the hydrologist estimates on the water available to the sources servicing the town's customers. You know, water doesn't pay attention to town boundaries, so where the water is coming from and where it's being replenished and who's using it really has to be understood. So I would urge you to spend time with the residents in the current and potential water districts to be very specific and plain speaking in terms of what fees, buy-in, connection, ongoing metering, tax bills, water treatment, all of that should be discussed with the residents that are in the districts. And the idea that some people in the past have had buy-in fees applied, not applied, in some cases refunded, seemingly means that we, on a case-by-case basis, connect people on the squeaky wheel approach rather than an open and fairly applied approach. And so I'm not a customer of the Wappingers Water District, so why should I care? Well, when you look at our two-year tax levies, which exceeded the state's 2% cap at 5% and 8% respectively, that was only acceptable because the tax levy cap applies to aggregate taxes levied by the town. And last year, because of the reduction in the water district taxes by 36%, that enabled the town outside tax levy to be increased to 8%. So that's great for those people who are in the water districts, the third of the town residents. But for two-thirds of us who are not, that means our tax levy has gone up a lot. So it really behooves us to pay attention to what's going on with the water districts and how the fees are being determined and how the taxes are being
I don't
applied.
think your information is accurate.
Yeah, that's-
Pardon?
I don't think your information is accurate with respect to the two.
It comes from the New York State Comptroller's Office.
I understand that. However, the town of Wappinger has never exceeded the 2% tax cap every single year since the tax cap was created. We take it very seriously on how we calculate to ensure that we are under the tax cap. I know that you've made this statement before, and I also have seen it documented online. It's inaccurate. So the information
No,
that
it's
you are
very
disseminating
No, it's
is
No,
not
no.
accurate.
It's accurate because your town outside tax levy was increased year to year by 8%. And you are correct, that did not exceed the 2% tax cap because the tax levies in aggregate
Correct.
included the water taxes. So for those of us, two-thirds of the population, or the residents, excuse me,
Right.
are not in a water district.
You don't pay water taxes.
Yep.
Correct. So therefore, my town outside tax levy is up 8%.
That is your position. What I can tell you is, as a town, we budget town-wide. We bring the special districts into the overall budget, and that's how the 2% tax cap is calculated. Your information is inaccurate.
Okay, we beg to disagree.
Okay, we
because
can
for
agree to disagree,
two-thirds of
but-
us, we're not in the water district, so it doesn't.
Correct, you don't pay water taxes.
Correct.
Okay.
So then the tax levy that we're charged doesn't include that reduction.
I don't pay water taxes either. We pay among the lowest taxes in Dutchess County, you and I, because we don't pay special district taxes for water or sewer.
Okay, so we're talking two different things, but that's fine, thank you. Thanks for your time.
That said, I do need clarification on the process with respect to individuals that petition the town to be receiving water from that line.
So what we did, Bill, in the past, before New York City's contract had expired, is that we required it on the emergency basis. But since then, anybody that wants to petition with respect to that New Hamburg Wheeler Hill line
Right.
may, petition to be added in until such time as we extend the water district. So there's no longer any limitation. So Ms. Wagman can also apply.
Sure.
If she wants to, for that. Also, with respect to the water volume, everybody will recall that we got a grant for water source protection, which did a thorough analysis of the amount of, water in our wells, that was confirmed by CAMO. Also, the replenishment rate and all those issues that were addressed is in that, particular study that's been presented to the board.
So one exception to that, the agreement we had was if you had a house on the property, not vacant property. It does not apply to vacant property. You set a precedent, you'll set a precedent for the entire town. You do that?
Well, I don't know that we have a written
Right?
policy with respect to this at all.
We've been following that policy for the last couple of times, like the ones down on Old Hopewell Road by
If you
the
have a
fire
well,
station.
if you have a well failure,
Right, but there's no well failure, there's no house.
right, that's what I'm saying. I don't know that we have a policy with respect to properties that are not in a well failure. In other words, I remember many years ago, I said, I can't wait to get to 2021.
Right.
When we can
Yeah.
finally entertain properties that are not in a well failure. That got pushed back due to COVID, right? I understand now we
don't have that
we don't have that restriction, but I think there is a point here to be made that we need to collectively decide how we're going to proceed, right? It shouldn't be arbitrary. Anyone has a right to apply for tenancy and petition the town board for that, but I think before we move forward on granting any tenancies that are not failures, that are not well failures, we need to have a consensus of the town board on how that's going to be done in a way that is transparent and fair, as Ms. Wagman pointed out.
So, one of the things that has been, well, let me take a step back. At the time that the water main was extended to the DEP site, and then further down to Chelsea, the original, so the United Wappinger Water District was extended in approximately 3 phases. The first phase was extension to serve the DEP the DEP shaft site for water construction, and that was pursuant to an intermunicipal agreement with New York City DEP. New York City DEP provided $11 million for construction of that line. The initial phase of construction was actually, I want to say, slightly below $6 million. The town had very good fortune of benefiting from the post-construction slump after the 2008 real estate collapse. So the construction was substantially less than was anticipated. At the time the water line was extended, there was also a loop that was constructed, 2 loops actually, one loop in Meadowwood that was done as a result of the Toll Regency project, which was funded by Toll, and then the town funded a loop to connect basically Route 9
McFarland.
by Adams along McFarland Road up to White Gates condominiums. At the time, and then also the extension down, as I mentioned, to New York City DEP. During all of those extensions, as the water mains were constructed, there were taps that were provided to connect the existing lots along those routes. On McFarland Road, Wheeler Hill Road, River Road, the taps were on the town roads. The mains were installed within the town highway right-of-way, and taps were provided on both sides of the road. On Old Hamburg Road, New Hamburg Road and Old Hopewell Road, because it was under county jurisdiction, the water main was not laid within the highway itself, but actually adjacent to the highway on the north side of the road. Taps were provided, individual taps were provided for the individual lots on one side of the road. There was the Houstonville Fire District paid for a bore underneath Old Hopewell to provide water service to the firehouse.
Well, hold on, that's not to the firehouse, that's for emergency.
Correct.
Use only, it's not connected to the firehouse, it's only for filling the fire
Right.
tankers and engines for the purposes of emergencies, so that needs to be clarified.
Okay.
So and correct me if I'm wrong here, any property that we have granted tenancy along that line so far has had to come before the town board and show that there is a well failure on their
Emergency.
property.
That
and that
was
That's right.
the pre-termination.
no, I understand. I just want to clarify that because,
Pre-termination.
we're at a good junction right now because now we can have conversations about the
Right.
many other people that have been calling
Correct.
some of us for years.
And that's what we tell them.
And so, that said, Jim, I understand that when this pipe was laid, and I was here, and former Supervisor Gutzler was also an integral part of this, just placing that pipe where it lies today was, as you know, a lot of discussion on what would best benefit existing residents in this town. And that needs to be pointed out as we move forward. Go ahead.
So with respect to that, there were, the initial phase of construction was to get the water main to the DEP shaft site.
Right.
And the way the intermunicipal agreement was drafted with New York City, basically, there were multiple phases. There was a second phase, which was to extend the water main to the Chelsea Hamlet. And then the final 2 phases was to extend the water main into Stenger Court and up Circle Drive and in those areas. And then the last phase was, again, this was basically negotiated with New York City DEP. New York City DEP provided $11 million, and they, the town made certain requests for connections, and DEP denied some and approved others. The town's position was we wanted to extend the infrastructure as far as possible.
Right.
To get mains in the ground and let the property owners connect at their own cost, but New York City DEP wanted to connect the residents in Chelsea
Right.
because they
The-
did
and-
it as a seeker mitigation for construction.
In plain English, the residents of Chelsea were suffering the most impact from the trucks driving up and down and past their houses, and it was discussed under a former town board that the residents that were connected in Chelsea were done as part of the money that was left over because they were directly impacted by the ongoing construction that went on for 10 years, I think.
Still going on.
You know,
It's still going
Right.
on, but unfortunately, the whole road is impacted, and the whole road is not benefiting from New York City. And that's a letdown.
That's a-
And I want that to be known to the residents,
that's a good point.
that New York City has not helped every resident in Chelsea. Even though we are putting up with the traffic and the trucks and the destruction of the roads. Go ahead, please.
So, and one of the things that, as the supervisor had mentioned and Councilman Beal had mentioned, part of that agreement with New York City reserved a certain amount, I believe it was 400,000 gallons per day to New York City for use
Right.
at that site. New York City has basically
Excuse me.
more or less ceased needing that amount of water, and they have agreed that the town could now use that water for other purposes.
Okay.
So that was one of the reasons why we had the emergency restriction on, because we had a contractual obligation to first provide New York City with water.
Right.
That contractual obligation is no longer in place. New York City closed out that contract.
Okay, so that's a good point to have on the record. Former Councilman Paoloni was here at the beginning of all this, too. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. And the great irony that I always like to tell people is 51% of New York City's water runs under the town of Wappinger in the area where we had no water for town residents. So we were trying to, and the other irony is the fact that they needed our water in order to do the construction project on their water system. So that said, I appreciate sometimes I don't appreciate your historical commentary as much, but tonight I did because it puts things in perspective. No offense, but sometimes it goes on forever. But
Well,
that's okay.
And to the point,
Sometimes.
to the point you just made regarding the irony, New York City also has, which some people are not aware of, that New York City has an emergency backup pump station at
Right.
Chelsea where they can suck water in from the Hudson River
Yeah.
and inject it into the New York City water system. They have not used that because of a lot of different issues with respect to pressures and also with respect to the quality of the water that right now.
That's an absolute last resort.
Right,
Right.
and they don't have a filtration system, and that was one of the things that, basically, New York City originally intended to use that as water for the construction. However, they realized that there was a lot of particulate matter in it, and they would have had to filter it.
Right.
So in essence, they estimated that $11 million was the cost of them constructing the filtration plant.
Right, it was better for us to benefit.
And
Yeah.
they made the choice that they would give that money to the town to extend our water,
Right.
rather than spend the money for a filtration plant.
And this goes back to 2008, and just,
Right.
I appreciate it being put in perspective, because sometimes we forget how we got to where we are today, and I think the board as a whole, we do need to have a conversation, not tonight, not right now, but we need to have a conversation about, okay, we're now at the point where we can entertain parcels or residents, or however we decide to come to an agreement. For those that don't have an emergency, how are we going to entertain those properties? And I don't think we're going to come to that conclusion tonight, but that's my position.
If I may, just with respect to that, the typical way that that's done, and what we had discussed at the time, was creating a water district. So when you create a water district, not all of the properties that are included in the water district are obligated to pay the capital costs for the construction and operation and maintenance of that district, whether they connect to the water or not.
Is there a water district today? No.
What's that?
No.
Not
Is
in
there-
that,
is there
not
a water district?
servicing
The
those
answer is no.
areas.
It's not, no.
The tenancy agreements that are drafted with the people who have requested it all require a buy-in fee, which is $3,200 per parcel. They're calculated based upon a 330 gallon per day usage, which is the Dutchess County Department of Health standard for a single-family residential house. Typically because of, and that's based on 1970 fixtures. Most of the current houses with, water-saving fixtures, toilets, things of that nature, use in the neighborhood of about 200 gallons per day. So that's kind of one of the things that's there as well. And that is we have a calculation that's been ongoing that has how many vacant parcels and unconnected parcels there are within the United Wappinger Water District. And based on the usage, whether it's single-family or not, there's a reserve capacity of approximately 330 gallons per day for all the parcels that are not connected. So that's an ongoing thing. And again, since the agreement was entered into with New York City, the time that was entered into, the Meadowwood wells were not connected to the system. So part of the things that was added, and that was again as a result of the Meadowwood loop, additional capacity was brought online.
In addition to Hilltop and
Right.
Atlas, we
In
brought on
addi- right.
additional capacity.
So Meadowwood was brought online. The wells had been drilled. They were servicing the Meadowwood subdivision, but the Meadowwood loop constructed by Toll, brought that in and integrated it with the whole United Wappinger Water District. But one of the things that was contemplated at the time that the lines were built and the service connections were made, those properties were all contemplated to be included in a future extension of the United Wappinger Water District. One of the bigger concerns would be so the water main on New Hamburg and Old Hopewell Road only runs on one side of the property, one side of the road. In order to service the property on the south side of the road, there would have to be one or more bores to get the water main over, and additional mains extended on the opposite side of the road. That was not paid for by New York City. That was one of the requests that the town made of New York City, but New York City rejected that request. Another request that the town made was to extend water underneath the train tracks to get to the area of the Chelsea Yacht Club. That again was also rejected. And it also was a request to extend the water main to the town of Fishkill line around South River Road. That was rejected as well. So,
But we continue to supply water to New York City.
yes, but
Okay.
nowhere near 400.
Yeah, but we
Thousands.
received,
I just want
No,
to
I-
make that point.
well, we received $11 million in infrastructure.
I understand that,
So,
but I
and
also
they
have
pay,
people
and again,
that-
they pay for the water they use.
Right, they pay for it.
So the $11 million was an upfront contribution to build the line, and they're paying for, O&M charges for the water that they use.
So moving forward, and twice in the last 10 years, we've had discussion about at what point do we entertain creating a district, and the opinion has been we need to wait until we satisfy the amount of water they need, and it sounds to me that we now have satisfied that. So at a future date, we need to have a conversation about how to move forward, in my opinion, in a fair and transparent way, so that all individuals that are along that,
Have an opportunity to hook up.
yeah, I mean, there are other folks that have reached out.
We've received 50,
It's ongoing.
informal petitions from property owners.
Sure.
In the Houstonville area along that road, which Jim has, but, we have to do a formal, process to create that water district.
Oh, right,
Jim
so,
is working on
okay,
it.
yeah, so that's another role.
And the biggest concern, the easiest district extension would be just to include all of the property owners which currently have a tap. That would basically be no cost, or relatively little cost to the town, because the water main is constructed, the taps are there. The individual property owners would have to pay a buy-in fee, and that would be it. But the prior town boards had not done that because they thought that it would be unfair to people who lived on the south side of Old Hopewell and
Wheeler.
Hamburg Road.
Oh, yeah, no.
Because they would then, those few properties would then have to bear
The cost, yeah.
the cost of that connection. Also, there has been requests for people off of McFarland Beechwood Circle.
Sure.
Beechwood Circle, again, there's an existing main and taps in McFarland, which would be, again, if you just included the people that fronted and have an existing tap, they would have very little cost in actually connecting to the district. But, if you spread the cost of putting a main on Beechwood or putting a main, on some of the other roads, stub roads that come off, in the Houstonville Hamlet, Dean or, some of those other properties there, there's been, when the main was constructed, there were provisions made for future extensions at those locations, but, there's stubs and things like that for a future connection. But, the infrastructure, the pipe was not laid in those other roads. And the thought was if you used, basically spread those costs among all of the property owners, then you wouldn't saddle, the people who did not have the luck of being on the route.
So it sounds like we have more work to do tonight because, it sounds like we're not in agreement on moving forward with this. At least I'm not. We got properties next to it, 691, 683. They're not in the water district. There's no well issues. So again, and these two properties are vacant. I don't want to start setting a precedent where all of a sudden everybody's going to, in my opinion, that we're going to start, giving.
Ken, that's their right, Al.
But they
You know,
can-
this is a taking. I mean, he would have the perfect right to sue us for blocking it. The tie-in is there. The deed is
They
there.
are asking us tonight, he's coming forward to the board to ask
That's
us. And so we're giving our opinion.
Yeah,
That's my opinion.
But-
You got 4 other board members that can decide too.
yeah. Right?
Well, I don't want to interrupt anyone. I don't disagree with folks petitioning the town board. However, it can't be arbitrary, all right? And it needs to be.
And that's my point. It
Yeah,
can't be
I
arbitrary.
believe it needs to be in a very orderly fashion of how this is done. And, I just keep hearing in my mind, there's a couple residents that have been calling me for years asking to connect, and they have had no well problems, and I've told them we have to have a discussion and set policy by the town board once we reach the point where we can now entertain those that are just choosing to connect to the town infrastructure. So, I don't want to make it look like we're singling out anyone in particular. I just think we have to look at the greater population that runs along that pipe. Many of those folks, when that pipe went in, it was not a very convenient time for them when we're having to trench through through what they thought was their front yard. So I would hate to take any action right now before having conversations with a couple of those people that I know, I'm thinking of right now, that live on Old Hopewell Road that I think deserve a conversation before we start granting these tenancies. That's my position from.
So on
But I
McFarland,
have a question.
okay.
They have the opportunity, anybody has the opportunity to come back to the board and petition for water once they develop their property, when they get their building permit. Am I correct?
So there's two different, so yes, you could, so there's kind of two different things. One would be a petition to extend the water district,
No, I understand that, but if,
which is a very costly.
I understand that. I'm
And then-
asking if this piece of property, I have a piece of property, it's not developed, but my property outside of it has the line there. I can come back and say, I've built my house, I go to the building department and say, I would like to be considered to be hooked up.
Well, you're not going to get a C of O if you're not connected to the.
No, but you have the right, or I dig a well,
So
is
so
what
I
I'm
think-
saying. I'm saying they have that right to come back, correct?
Yeah,
So
but.
so I
Okay.
think,
To the-
so I
to
think the point is, at the point of application for a building permit, at that point in time, right, they're going to ask you, for what is your water source? At that point in time, you come back, you come for the tenancy agreement and say,
Okay.
my house is here, I'd like to hook up.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that would be across the board for everybody in the town.
I think to
Let me clarify
Bill's
how
point,
the whole system works. You can't get a building permit unless you have a source of water.
I understand that.
So you can't come back after the fact, after you have a building permit, you can't come back and say, oh, I want to change my source of water. So you have to determine that when you apply for the building permit. So the point of my exercise is, before a building permit is even applied for, I'm asking that instead of drilling a well, I'm in agreement with my neighbor Marcy here, why are we penetrating the aquifer, which is not reproducing the amount of water that's being taken out? Why don't we use the water that's in the pipe that's in the front yard versus drilling another well, like she pointed out? And that's all I'm trying to do. So then what you can do is you can change your application for the town water versus drilling a well. But you won't be able to do it after the fact, like you're mentioning. Once you apply and get the building permit, you have to either drill the well or whatever the permit was applied for. So what I'm doing, I've already got permission to drill wells, and what I'm saying is, there's a curb cock right in the front yard. Why not waive the well requirement and hook into the water that's right there? I will point out that when they came down Wheeler Hill Road, I granted the town, and I think former Supervisor Gutzler can attest to it, 10 years ago, I granted the town, and they came through my yard instead of going around a 90-degree turn, which I have an easement. Town has an easement through my front yard right now on one of my properties. And it was just, you know, it was done as, basically, it made sense. It was common sense. So that's all I'm trying to move forward on. I'm trying to create common sense, and now I'm listening to you guys are spinning this into like this whole global thing, and all I'm saying is, hey man, there's a curb cock in the front yard. Doesn't it make sense to tie into that for a new home versus drilling a well?
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell, but we are also looking at the entire town. So we're taking that into consideration too. So thank you.
Okay.
You make a good,
You
make a good
guys
point.
make your decision.
You make a good point,
You
but
guys let me know, but it's not, I'm not up here begging for water service.
Right.
I already have well approval. What I'm trying to do is do it a better way. Okay, something that's better for the environment, better for my neighborhood. I don't need any more wells down where I am. And the water is right in the front yard. I don't even have to go on the road.
right, no, I think you're making a good point. I think-
Plus, I'm going to be paying the buy-in fee, and I'm going to be paying a water fee after that.
I get that. I just think we need to collectively have a policy moving forward for properties that do not have well
Yeah, but Bill,
emergencies.
it was 10 years ago that we put the pipe through my front yard.
Right.
And they said, oh, yeah, man, you can't tie into that for 8 or 10 years. Here we are 10 years later, and you guys are going like, oh, yeah, man, we got to think about this.
Well, we have to have a policy. We can't do this arbitrarily. We have to have a policy. It can't be that all of a sudden now we're just going to start granting by resolution moving forward. We have to have a position
Exactly.
of this town.
Okay.
No one else has done this before. We have several people that have asked about doing this. I've had people call me and, 2 administrations ago asking
Yeah.
about this, and I said, you got to wait until we get to the point we can entertain those things.
Yep.
These resolutions landed tonight. This first I'm seeing them is in this packet, to be honest with you. So I'm not against what
What,
you're
this is
saying.
the first time? We've talked about this for years.
Correct, and I said we
About
have to
tying
wait.
in Wheeler Hill Road into the.
That is correct, Craig, and as I said previously, we have to wait till we get to the point where we can entertain these types of requests. Obviously, now we're at that point. We need to take a position here as a town board and move forward in an organized fashion. I mean, it shouldn't be random people all of a sudden start putting these requests in because they happen to be in the know. There are folks that don't follow the town board meetings. There are folks that may not know we are at this juncture right now that should also have an opportunity to be aware that the town is now entertaining connections.
I
That's
agree.
all.
I agree
Well,
with
again,
Councilman Beal.
I'm just trying to create common sense solutions here.
I understand.
And I see something that is totally common sense, and I'm just, I came to the board to,
Sure.
basically formalize it. And it sounds as though it's going to turn into a, just a spin motion, so
I don't think it's
probably
gonna-
I'll end
I
up
don't
just
think
drilling wells on the property, you know what I mean?
I
don't
understand.
think so either.
Because I don't see you guys acting in a timely fashion. The house will be done and the kids will be graduating high school by the time you guys decide, so.
That's your opinion, Craig, and understand that, understand that
Okay,
we
let's-
have to be,
Let's stop the argument. Let's stop arguing.
I will do my best to move this along as quickly as possible.
Good luck.
If I may, just one other thing with respect to.
Thank you, Councilman Beal.
Thank you, Bill.
With respect to the other, with respect to the tenancy agreements that we've granted in the past, and the one that was drafted in this case, there is a provision that anyone who signs the tenancy agreement agrees to be part of the petition to extend the water district should the property owners petition to extend the water district.
Right.
Or if the town board does it on its own motion, anyone with a tenancy agreement will not oppose the action of the town board to extend the water district. So that's part of all of the tenancy agreements that we've drafted for all of these properties.
Okay.
Right, this is not a simple
No.
situation, because the town needs to decide if we're going to extend the water district, and that is not an easy situation to decide when folks on one side of the street are not able to connect, and folks on the other side of the street can. So
I-
we have to decide if it makes more sense in the short term to allow for these individual tenancies. We're not trying to obstruct anything here, and I understand his points, I get it. I'm a firm believer that our water is held to a higher standard than well water, which it is. I have a well, but municipal water is held to a higher standard. So I agree with what he's saying. However, we can't just do this on a whim off a resolution that just landed tonight. That's all, and I do
I
agree with you,
agree.
Marcy, from that perspective, I do. So we need to get together as a board.
Yes.
I would say at a workshop, and come together on what the process should be, and if we can agree on what that process should be in the short term versus the long term. I don't want to belabor the point anymore.
I agree with Councilman Beal, and the board, I believe, also agrees, and I think that's something we need to discuss that will help the entire town of Wappingers, not just a specific area. I understand the hardships. I have a well, too, and my water I don't drink, so I get it.
Okay. Other comments on other topics? Moving on.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
No,
I mean,
public portion.
public portion, sorry,
Okay,
people.
motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Checking
Any
to see
nays
if
or
anybody's paying
abstentions?
attention.
Seeing none, the motion is passed. Okay, the next item will be in our discussions, and this is with respect to the 4 properties. We've had discussions before. Judith would like to speak.
Thank you. I think I can keep this rather short tonight for you. We brought the 4 properties here last town board meeting, and tonight we have a representative from every parcel. I'm going to speak on their behalf unless you want to speak to them directly. 16 Dogwood Hills. We are now discussing with a contractor. He is taking out a permit to demolish the building. We have hired they have hired someone to come in and remove the debris and the vehicles. That is happening. We are getting everything tied up, so I'm personally dealing with them. And the second property is 101 New Hamburg. They, as of today, put up construction fence around the barn and the property.
Or is that 120?
I'm sorry, 120.
There you go.
Thank you, 120 New Hamburg. And as of today, they did put up the construction fence around the barn and the house, and they are working with an engineer firm who is here represented, and they are working on potentially restoring that property.
Okay.
They feel that they can do it, we'll certainly entertain that, and they will be taking out permits as well.
Okay.
We have 1259 Route 376 here. I personally walked the property with Mr. Lodge, and we have been able to secure the door, the front entrance. He is working on clearing to get that fence up. He has put construction tape and all the warning signs around, and he is working with his lawyer and his engineering firm to figure out what he's going to be doing with that, which is probably half demolish and half restore.
What about the vehicles on the property?
I'm sorry?
What about the vehicles on the property?
That's secondary, I believe, to the securing the building and getting everything safe.
Okay.
So we do have a plan
Because
for
that is an issue, too.
It certainly is, and we're going to address that secondarily.
Okay.
We have spoken about it, but right now, we're getting the structure safe. And then we have 101 Old Post Road, and the daughters are here this evening, and they also have, are working with their lawyer and their engineering firm to decide what they're going to do. So at this time, because we use the town board to, could not get into compliance, but at this time, since everybody is working with me, and I feel that that's going to continue, I would like to ask the board if we can take this out of the town board's hand now, and we can do this as it should be between the building department and the residents. If I do in fact run into communication or lack of compliance, I will bring it back. But do you think that's okay? I'm going to be dealing with them on a personal
Is
nature.
there a
and keep
timeline to
this
close
piece-
these?
I'm sorry?
Is there a timeline to close all of them? Do you
Well-
have 6 months?
Yeah, I believe every single one of them will certainly be done in 6 months. They all
Okay.
have a different time frame because they're engineers, they're lawyers, et cetera. Some of them will be done rather quickly. I think 16 is going the fastest, but certainly it's within its time frame. I think by the year's end, I'll have a good answer for everything. But secure, they are getting secure, so I think that's the most important.
Yeah.
I think
Thank
it's
you so
great,
much.
Judith, thank you, and the building department, thank you, and I think it would be fine
Yeah,
that
I-
you
no
handle
issues.
this.
So at the next board meeting, I can just give you a report where we're at.
Sure.
Sure.
But I don't believe I need to bring anybody
No.
back for that.
No.
That's good.
I think, and thank you.
And I appreciate them all coming this evening, but again, keeping it in a nice, friendly, I think.
Of course.
And we appreciate,
you,
their
everything.
cooperation
Yeah.
and assistance on it.
Judith, you've been dealing with very complicated, challenging situations. Individuals facing these types of situations often have other unique challenges,
Absolutely.
okay? And I know it's been stressful for you, but on behalf of the town board, I just want to thank you on the public record here for being so proactive and determined to bring this to a resolution in a way that, keeps it dignified.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm sure the residents appreciate you working with them to make this come to fruition, so
It's
thank you very much for all your hard
actually-
work. I know
it's-
Barbara's been behind it too, Barbara Roberti, so thank you both.
Our
I
whole
appreciate the
department's
time
been working
and
hard
effort.
on this,
Right.
so thank you for that.
It's a
And
good team effort.
the residents are a pleasure. We're working very well together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next item is discussion on the employee handbook. Jessica, please.
Hello.
Hello.
So I think everybody should have this packet that's in their minutes. So as you know, the current handbook is from 2010, and many of the policies are outdated. When I first came out, I started trying to revise it, and I realized it's a bigger job than I think I can handle. So for the cost of the proposal, I think it's actually a really good option. I know Town of Fishkill and Town of Poughkeepsie both use it, and both of their handbooks are available online to view, and they're actually really nice. And the money I would like to use, because I didn't start till June, so there's almost half my salary in the line, and we could take that money to use for this.
So
This is $6,500,
Yep.
correct?
So $6,500 to finally put the town employee handbook to bed properly.
Correct.
Have it available for view. How long does the process take to get it to completion?
I do not have an answer for that one yet.
Okay.
Is this the same company we talked about before, Public Sector HR Consultants?
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe they
Yeah.
said they spoke with
Yep.
Councilman
They
Lucy.
actually were gonna, and may still come in and talk to us about their services on other things.
Is there a way to see the actual handbook? I mean, we have a couple of pages here, but it's,
So they didn't give an actual handbook. Like I said, Town of Poughkeepsie has theirs online, and Town of Fishkill has theirs online. Well, the Town of Fishkill, I'm not sure it's online, but I do have a copy that I can email, a digital copy.
so Town of Fishkill is exactly the same as one we're getting?
Well, it's not exactly the same because the policies are specific,
Yeah,
like
we
things
have
like
unique
vacation and
contracts.
contributions. And
Right, so how do we get what's
I mean,
in it?
there's some portions that are going to be the same, things that are legal, like FMLA or the cancer screening law or whatever. Some things are legal and they're going to be exactly the same. And then our policies, we'll take them from our current handbook, or if they're different, then we can discuss them to figure out which way we're going to go.
And modify based on state law
Yes.
updates. But, and we'll run through
And I
the
s-
union contracts.
So the
Yes, and I spoke with the HR person at Fishkill today, and she said she actually has a Word copy, so she is able to change it as she goes if needed. So we'd start with a nice copy, and then if things evolve, we'll be able to edit it.
So the 6,500 pays for one copy, and I guess you're going to email out to the employees. How do you get it distributed to the employees? Do you have hard copy for the 6,500?
We can get it printed. I'm not concerned about getting it printed.
Well,
that
everybody
part-
has an email, don't they? And they can look at
A
a
town,
soft
no,
copy.
actually, there's still a few that,
Excuse me?
there's a few that don't have town emails, and then there's a few I don't have emails
My-
for.
My
But-
point is, I just want to make sure all employees get it.
Oh,
So I'm just trying to
absolutely.
figure out who's going to get it hard copy, if it's hard copy, is it soft copy, how are you going to get it to the employees?
I say every employee gets a hard copy, and then they have access to the digital one, and.
Right.
That's what I
That's my
like.
point, so
And every
6,500, I don't,
employee should also sign that they
Well,
receive.
wait a minute. We already do that.
Yeah, in the hiring packet, it's a copy of the
There's-
handbook, and then they sign that they
Everybody
receive
yearly
it.
is to sign off on it and make sure that
Yeah.
read it. And the program managers are supposed to make sure of that. So
Everybody
this is
receives them
nothing
when they're
new.
hired. So it would be, we'd have to get some printed for that, and then actually having them digital is great, because then you can just search for the one particular section that you want to review.
But help me for a second. The employee handbook that exists today is not online?
It is, but it's,
Okay.
it seems to be a copy of a copy,
it was
so it's
scanned.
actually this,
Yeah, but you can edit a scanned copy.
oh yeah, you can, but
Yeah, you can.
it's not as easy to edit it. It's not as
But you
pretty
can-
in the end, it's not.
Somewhere, I think I
Okay.
have a.
Yeah, we now, the genesis of our employee handbook goes back to pre-2007, Joe Ruggiero, prior to the other union existing, okay? So we have a new union that came in here. Much of the employee handbook from those days is inconsistent with the union contract that exists for the new union. So my position is, I have sat here probably hours of having conversations about an employee handbook. For $6,500, I believe we need to get this done. This handbook will be consistent and uniform. It will not contradict the union contracts. And I believe this will be able to more clearly outline some of the most important aspects, which include workplace safety, hazard communication, those types of things that I always get nervous about, because year to year here, HAZCOM and some of these OSHA and PEST requirements will just say, maybe we won't say that, but I'm not confident that they were always completed.
so
thank you.
does the town board get an opportunity to see it before you pass it out? Because,
Sure,
we certainly want to review it.
We have to
Yeah, we'll
approve,
have a draft,
We'll have to
we have to
Okay.
approve the draft document.
Okay.
but I don't think they're gonna make us the draft until we get
We
contract.
have to pay
Yeah.
first before we get the draft.
pay us for the draft.
That's
I think it's worth every penny, to be honest with you, because it's been piecemealed for years, and I have confidence that you're going to be able to make this all right. And we'll have to review it, obviously, but I don't see this being a
I
heavy
agree.
lift for
Well,
us.
I'd like to see the one that exists today. Can you get
I
me a
can
copy?
email it, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
give me a
you mean our
hard
current
copy.
one?
I'm
Our
sorry?
current one, the current town handbook?
Yes.
Oh, that's actually available on the website.
Okay.
I can
but
email you a
give
copy,
me
but it is,
a copy, please.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy?
nice.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
How are you? All right.
Good evening, everyone. Nice seeing you again. I'm here as the president of the Friends of Spook Hill Foundation to present two scenarios to bring art and culture to Spook Hill Park. Scenario number one would be to make Spook Hill Park an artscape or an art space where we would have temporary artwork displayed, either canvases or sculptures. We would take the handball court and redo it a little bit, make it for children to put their handprints on. They could do children's graffiti on it. We would use what used to be the Arts and Culture Committee to help us with that. We could get some grants, possibly, or some donations from private businesses. Scenario number two is the one you have in front of you, which I sent all of you by email. This is a permanent mural on 3 sides of the bathroom supply area of Spook Hill. There would be no cost to the town because the foundation would pick up both the artwork and the installation. The artist, Frank Bello, is right here to answer some of your questions. The main question I know that I've heard from some of you already is about vandalism and about graffiti. Frank has assured me, and he will assure you, that the paint that he uses is graffiti resistant. Also, he has had murals very successfully placed in the city of Poughkeepsie and other areas to great success. There has been absolutely no damage done to any of the murals, and he will promise you that that will be the case here. We're going to work with the Wappinger Central School District, as we usually do. The way Frank does it, he takes about 2 weeks to do the mural, and then on the Saturday morning, the kids will come in and actually finish up helping him paint under supervision. It's not going to look like a child's painting. I've sent you different examples. You have his brochure. Most of that can be changed around. One of the changes I asked him to make was, instead of saying welcome to Spook Hill Park, could be welcome to our park or welcome to your park, just in case we need to change the name of the park if we name it after someone, some local hero. I've seen Frank's work. He does amazing work, and I'd like to introduce him and have him come up, and with your approval, we can move ahead. Because he does have a kind of weather problem, which he'll explain to you. If he gets started pretty soon, we possibly can finish up before the winter. So, Frank?
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Council, for listening to my little spiel here tonight. So I brought some designs for the mural. And the brochure there is several of my murals. I've painted probably 3-4 dozen murals over the last 25, 26 years. I've had a lot of experience. I've worked with seniors. I've worked with kids. I've done one mural on the brochure is 350 feet long and 60 feet high. It was the biggest mural in the United States at the time. It's in Jersey City, where I used to live. And so I should comment, Randy mentioned about the resistance of the mural. What I do with all my murals is I coat them at the end when they're finished. I put two kinds of coatings. One is called aquathane, which is a fading preventative. It slows the fading, and it really works, because some murals that I've done and I've used that coating, years later I go back and I can see where I missed a few spots, and you could see the difference between the faded and the unfaded. So that's one thing. And then the second coating is called Graffiti Guard, and it's very thick. It's like the consistency of honey, and you roll it on and it dries almost to a glass finish. It's actually pure lacquer.
Wow.
It's very toxic, but you're outside, and so it's not that bad. But that also works. The mural on the brochure, the one on the front page, it's in Poughkeepsie, right downtown. It's 130 feet long. I painted that 22 years ago, and it looks
really?
exactly like it does in that photograph, and that photo is 22 years old.
Nice.
So the Graffiti Guard really works, and also if somebody, sprays something, you can wipe it off with Windex.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great stuff. It's very expensive. It's about $150 a gallon, but it's worth every penny. So,
We should get that for the boys.
as you can see, I've included a lot of upbeat, fun, colorful imagery that everybody can appreciate.
Yeah.
Kids and animals and flowers and birds and bunny rabbits and, that kind of thing. So what I would do is I would paint all the higher parts, and then I would leave some of the lower areas for kids to paint.
Yeah.
I would draw the outline of an image and then have them instruct them, this is blue, this is green, and then they can, so everybody can participate.
And stay within the lines. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, and then of course, I'll go back when nobody's looking, and
I'm
I'll
only kidding.
Make a
I'll
pretty
touch it
little
up.
flower here.
I'll touch it up.
No, your work is lovely. It really
Thank you.
is. The only thing I may suggest is, because we're blessed with 4 seasons, maybe incorporate a winter scene too,
Yeah,
maybe?
sure. Well, I
You
could,
know, we have
yeah, I
spring,
can,
summer,
yeah, I
fall,
can make the tree,
winter. Would be good
or one of the
because
two trees. I'll make one summer, one
maybe,
fall.
yeah,
I have to say, Frank,
they're beautiful.
this artist is legit. Now, I had no idea who the person was that painted
Yeah, same.
the historic Hyde Park, that's where I watched the parade, I think it's the 4th of July parade, right? I sit
Yeah.
there in front of Osterhout Electric with my kids and my wife, and we watch the parade, and often I'll have to walk away for a minute when my kids are going nuts. So I go and I look at the mural, and I'm sitting there looking at the mural going, I wonder if that's the actual town board members' faces that are on that, because it says town board right there, and I'm sitting there looking at it going, are they fake people or real people?
Well, they are, some of them are real people. I actually painted 4 or 5 people that helped me with the mural. It's my little thank you. Like one fellow there on the left side of the banner, he
Right.
came every day and brought me a cup of coffee and iced tea. That's Carl. He's a sculptor friend of mine, and I painted him in there. And then there's a fellow with a beard behind the banner. He took dozens of photographs of me painting. You know, every day he would photograph and post them. So it's just my little way of thanking people who helped me
Very
along.
nice.
So little cameos in there.
Very nice.
But
Town attorney's
And in fact, the guy.
yeah, the town attorney's certainly not included in the
In fact, the guy
Bill
Carl,
wants his picture in this one, too.
he's sort of become a little minor celebrity because everybody actually recognizes him. You say, Carl, is that you in the mirror? Yeah.
Well, that's funny. But
That's nice.
the quality of your work is just incredible.
Thank
It's
you.
outstanding.
I mean, it's not, you know,
really
sometimes
is.
you see murals and you're like, all right, okay. But the one in the city of Poughkeepsie, you said that was 20 some odd years ago
It's
now?
amazing how it stood up.
Yeah, that's, and those are based on real businesses that were in Poughkeepsie over the last 100 years.
Yeah, that's right there on Main Street.
That's all the lacquer on there, that's what that is.
I mean, I've always wondered who did that. Now here he is.
Me. I have probably more murals in Dutchess County than anybody else. If
think
I say
it's
so myself.
great.
I have about 12 or 13 just outdoor murals, and then another 12 to 13 indoor
Inside?
murals. I don't know anybody else who has more than that.
I
And
think
also-
it's great. I think
Also,
it'd be great.
the Garden Street mural, it looks
I
like
saw
4
that.
buildings. That's the
Yeah.
biggest mural in Dutchess County.
Oh,
So I'm
really?
proud of that one. I mean, a lot of people don't even know it's a mural because they think, well, it looks like 4 buildings. Yeah, it's all.
No, you have Lola's
It's
Cafe in
all
there.
paint.
You have,
all
it's
paint.
really neat, very neat.
That is insane. It's 75 feet high,
Yeah.
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 it is.
right? Or no, 70, I'm sorry, it's got to be,
No,
it's got to be
wide-
45 feet high.
45 feet
45
high.
75
Yeah.
feet
Be
long.
wide,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was hard to find a boom lift that would even go that high, but I found
Great.
That
one.
is just
job.
incredible. Anyway, I certainly want to have more conversations. I don't know if we're making a decision tonight or whatnot, but I want to incorporate, if possible and feasible, and we, I definitely want to incorporate Frank into some project here. And if Spook Hill Park is the place, then that's the place. Is there a resolution tonight, or are we doing?
No.
No, we didn't put a resolution.
No, so
in,
we'll
but
talk
we always
more
can.
with respect to how to do
I
it.
think
but-
part of it was, is that if he wants to get it done
Right.
this
Yeah.
year.
To start.
Oh, right,
start,
right.
Right? If not, then we'll have to go to, spring.
When's our
after
next
the
meeting?
winter.
The 25th.
25th.
25th, but
Kim-
you're pushing the weather, I think.
So,
I mean, Frank,
so when is the latest you could do it?
It's got to be at least 55 degrees.
Yeah.
Right, for the
55.
paint.
It's okay tonight.
Yeah.
That's the bare.
You got to get a
bare
fourth
minimum.
picture though, right?
I have no
Did you want a
problem.
fourth, did you want a fourth picture or no?
I thought we were okay in the emails, actually.
Yeah, me too.
Do you have a problem
have a
with okaying
problem?
it off the floor?
Put
I
the,
just don't know the cost.
0.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Randy, the cost is 0, correct?
The cost is 0.
Oh, I didn't know
think we
that.
should make a motion that we
That's
do
what
it.
I'm saying.
well, in that case, can you do
Do
like
it.
5?
I don't want to bring my grandchildren to Spook Hill and have Bill's face.
No. Listen, I have a face for radio, okay? So
So you're very lucky Bill won't be delivering coffee every day, so.
I'll be bringing you coffee every day, Frank, just to get in that thing.
So do I have a motion?
Yes, I make a motion
I'll
that
second
we
it.
proceed with this, and
Yes.
we're blessed to have
Great.
Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
Great.
Motion
To do
second,
this.
all in favor? Aye.
Thank
Any
you
nays or
so much.
abstentions?
Randy, we
None.
thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for bringing
Thank
the
you, guys.
artist.
Maybe we'll get you to
Thanks
do
for bringing
murals inside Town Hall,
Yeah.
too.
Let me just say a
Never
couple
know.
of things. First of all, there is 0. The foundation will pay for everything.
Perfect.
Also,
Thank you.
you've made it very clear, and I appreciate it, that Spook Hill is a special place. So I've asked Frank to include a kid in a wheelchair,
Sure.
that it be joyous and happy, so that kids can take pictures next
course.
to it, your children and grandchildren
Of
can
course.
take pictures next to it. He's an amazing person. I think it's going to be
Definitely.
a real good thing for the town.
Randy, as we
It's
discussed,
so
and as you
obvious.
mentioned tonight, I'd like you to come back and make some other proposals, you know,
Sure.
that interactive part of it and what, you know, some of the other murals
Yeah.
and so forth, and children, you know, so you can, we might place it around the park, but at least get this started.
Yeah, this one's good for
Definitely.
tonight, get Spook
Yeah,
Hill
I-
Park done.
And we're going to be the first ones to have you, so yay.
Yeah, my first mural in Wappinger.
That's
There you
right.
go.
Yes.
Well, actually, I
Oh.
have one in, I don't know if that's Wappinger. The DC Sports,
Yeah, that's,
kitty park there, I did a mural kind of in the back, where they have like a volleyball and sand,
oh, we'll have to go look at that one.
Yeah.
tropical landscape there.
For the volleyball?
Yes, that's
No,
the
that's
closest
the town.
one to here.
Gotcha.
We got to make sure no other
No,
towns
that's the
steal
town.
them.
No, DC Sports is the town.
Beautiful.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fine. We'll-
great. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy. Okay.
Very good.
Good stuff.
Jonathan, talk about the senior center. Tim couldn't make it, he's under the weather, so he apologizes.
How are you?
Go ahead.
So in front of you have our current plan for the proposed addition to the senior center and town hall here. Part of the project is adding on to the building. We're proposing to add about 670 square feet. And within the area that we're adding, that's the shaded area on the floor plan, that's all new construction. We're proposing for a new entrance directly to the outside for the senior center, a intermediate sitting area that will then open up into the larger community room. And then off of the community room, we're proposing a removable partition that could separate rooms that could be used as an art room or a game room, or if there's any other activities, or it can be opened up and the community room could be the entire width of that room. We're also keeping the access into Town Hall, because I know it's important that once seniors are in the building, they be able to get into Town Hall without going back outside, weather element related. We're creating a smaller recreation office, that's where Jessica would sit, that's closer to the entrance into the Town Hall corridor. We also created a larger storage room that would be able to hold all the tables and chairs from the community room should we need to open that up and have a open floor. We're adding a kitchen in the back right corner, and we are redoing the 2 bathrooms to bring them up to today's ADA code. Currently, they're sized too small for what today's standards are. We're also adding a handicap ramp in the back that would provide access for additional parking in the back. So we'll actually have 2 ADA accesses into this space. One would be the new entrance, and then the second one would be the back ramp. The cost that we're currently looking at for the entire project is about 1.3 million. We split the cost between how much it would cost to do the addition versus the area that's within the existing building footprint. When we add those 2 numbers up, that's how we get to about 1.3.
So Jessica, at this point in time, you're really cramped for space because we have new membership, we have new interests, so, correct?
So,
And we're at fire code limitations for the
yeah,
room.
so several days a week, especially on our event days, we have a fire capacity and seating of 56 people in there, and we hit it. We hit that capacity. In terms of some of the functionality of certain areas, the kitchen in the senior center, Donna and I were making BLTs for them, and even something as simple as 2 ladies trying to make a BLT in that space, it was playing bumper cars. So those functional areas where we're trying to do things to provide for the seniors are also, we've outgrown those. We've seen growth by leaps and bounds in almost everything we've been doing in there, in that program over the past year and a half. So, you know, I wouldn't say in terms of general membership that we're like turning people away, but for our events, we're having to cap them, we're having to have waiting lists for some of them. And that has to do with the fire capacity of the room.
Is there any grant money available? 1.3 is a steep price tag.
That question to me?
You or Jessica?
I'm not sure what's currently available. It's stuff that we could look into.
I think next year's,
Especially talking about ADA upgrades, that's where you're most likely to find your grant monies.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. When we did the
Right.
Challenger Field, we got some big grants there.
I think next year there will be a county municipal innovation grant that this may be applicable for, probably not the whole thing, but a portion of it for the
Yeah.
purposes of expanding the senior center. That may be consistent with that opportunity.
Especially with the upgrades for the ADA compliance, you know, because the current
Yeah.
center is not, it's grandfathered in.
Well, it's
Typically with a lot of like the community development block grants, is they're not gonna build new for you, but they're gonna do
Right.
the ADA upgrades. So when you think of the facilities that we already have in that room, we have a kitchen, we're making an ADA compliant kitchen.
Okay.
We have a vet. So that's where that kind of thing would start to tie in. Do I know what those are when that grant period opens at this time? I don't.
But the restrooms and other things, we have all that built in, so there,
Right.
a lot of that cost will be related
Will
to
be
that.
covered.
What does the seating occupancy go to under this new square footage? Do you know offhand?
I think 122.
122.
122? Okay.
yeah.
That's total. We're adding about 40 people to, you say you maxed out about 50?
Oh, sorry, I missed it there.
So, yeah, it's a
So
little
maybe
high.
closer to 90. That number is a total occupancy.
So
That's
that's
the open
standard.
room space, no tables and chairs.
So 90?
Yes, in the
And what
range.
is the current capacity?
56.
56?
And that's pushing it with the way the rooms are designed.
So, I mean, from my perspective, we have additional ingress and egress, right? I think the vestibule entrance on that side, I think is a good move. We kind of have this like weird door on the side there that to me is an emergency exit, but people go in and out of it. The back door needs to be rethought with a ramp, in my opinion. We've had a number of medical emergencies in there, and getting people out can be a challenge with the way it's set up right now. I think that could be a benefit. We live in hopefully a post-COVID world now. We've learned that we shouldn't be on top of each other all the time, right? And, you know, this is going to give a bigger footprint. This is going to give, right now, what you see in there, in my opinion, is, you know, 1990 standards, right?
If that,
I mean, you're on top, you're
Really?
sitting on top of everyone. It's always been that way since we opened here.
and with the space design, it allows for the wheelchairs, the walkers, the canes, you know, which is what has actually contributed to some of the issues we've had,
Injuries.
Jessica, right?
So one of the things that happens in that room is we have a capacity of 56 people, that's a capacity of 56 able-bodied people who aren't trying to
Right.
navigate between those tables
Exactly.
and chairs with possibly some balance issues, a cane, a walker. Right now, we don't have anybody who is a full-time wheelchair user, but chair legs are an obstacle when you're cramped in that tight.
There's a possibility, or is there a possibility to phase things in? Or does it all have to be all at once? Because we do need to make some of the improvements Councilman Beal was talking about, but
The
again,
outside could be built separate, and then we could make that transition in Phase 2 and do what's under the existing roof.
all this is a prevailing wage?
Yes.
How far into the parking lot do you go?
So we only actually take away 2 parking spaces. Right now, there's a lawn area where the art and game room are, and that line right outside the 28-foot dimension leader, that's the curb line right now.
Okay,
That's not bad.
no.
The other thing is, we don't have an opportunity for breakout rooms right now. And, you know, if someone needs some peace and quiet and wants to go sit somewhere, that's a challenge, right?
People are clicking their mahjong tiles too loud.
I don't know what that means.
The knuckle players don't like it. That's my
I don't speak that language.
But you're
Mahjong,
right, Bill, I mean, that's why this design is Yeah, and talking with seniors and so forth, this is what is behind the design to enable that.
I think it's a good concept. I think we need to figure out how we would finance something like this.
It's going to have to be bonded, it's big, unless you get a lot of grant money.
Yeah, but if we want to do this
Who
before
was
the end of the
our,
decade, we want to.
Our grant writer, maybe we can start looking.
Yeah.
I think it's another potential workshop discussion here
Yeah, I agree.
where we can dig into it and look at.
Also, you could
Finance
talk
option.
about it at budget time, right? So have a workshop, think
do
about it
have-
at budget time, figure out how we're going to do the capital planning for this, because it is a big expense. And you could build a brand-new house for 1.3 million, probably 6,000 square foot house. Now, again, it's not, handicap
ADA.
accessible, but ADA, but, I mean,
It's
I was
also not
thinking,
prevailing wage.
Public work
wow.
makes a big difference there.
Yeah, prevailing wage is the problem. I mean, I'm dealing with this at the fire department, we're looking at doing improvements and, millions and millions of dollars to try to do basic improvements.
Yep.
This particular case, I think, is worth having further discussion with
I agree.
respect to how to do it and what's feasible.
Yep, I agree.
It's the file cabinet.
Oh, okay. So I just was questioning, there's a 22-foot by 8 little square thing here.
That's Barbara's
And it's
space.
Barbara's space. Sorry.
Oh,
So maybe we could move Barbara's space? No, I'm kidding. There we go, see?
Well, no kidding, the court
Seriously.
could use a
Well,
bump out.
they've requested that.
That's another, and when you bump out to the curb line almost, that's what we had years ago talked about with the court bumping out to the curb line to increase that footprint. Courts obviously can receive grant funding a little bit easier than a senior center. So I think we need to have a conversation about how we would feasibly approach this.
All of it.
And that's
So
not going to be right now.
I
Yep,
think
no, I
it's a
agree.
workshop. So thank you. I think that's.
Thank
Thanks,
I appreciate
Jonathan.
your work, though, it's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is door repair, replacement at Rockingham Park. Again, I think we pretty much decided on email, but Al, go ahead.
Yeah, so
Our
there's,
discussion is a no decision, but certainly.
yeah, so there's a couple of doors over at Rockingham Park that were destroyed. They've been recently, one of them was actually replaced. It was on the soccer side, so we actually have a shed over there today. And the other side of the door has been totally destroyed. So basically be pulling the handle, the door will probably cave in. So there's a proposal on the dais here for $6,300 to replace the two doors, which includes the installation for those. Steve recommended that, again, we get both replaced. Even though soccer did replace the one side, it's not as sturdy as a door. So again, the proposal here is $6,300. But the other thing too is we need to, and I know Steve's taking a look at this. Again, this is a vandalism case here where I think we know who it is. I know Steve's put in a claim to our insurance, but what we need to do is, there are cameras there, by the way. We need to, pursue this, and those that are responsible should be made to pay the restitution. And if there's any kind of community service, that should also be instituted as well, because again, this is taxpayers' money we're paying out of here, and it should not fall on the taxpayers when, kids do damage here. It should fall on the parents to control the children. So, again, this proposal here is for roughly $6,300 for the two doors, and I think there's a resolution here later on. So I don't know if you want to entertain that, or if you had any other questions on this.
We can entertain it later so we don't mess up Joe's
Okay.
process.
There you go. Yeah, and we also try to look at, there was two doors, so again, soccer replaced the one door. We're looking to see if we could use the other door at Airport Drive. We had Sal go out there, take a look at the door. Door's in really good shape there, so there's no need to replace that. So again, we're going to use both doors for the shed over at Rockingham Park.
So I don't believe there's a resolution for this that was prepared, but, you can make one off the floor and then I'll draft something up.
Okay, I'll make them.
And then,
You want to just do that? You tell
It's
us.
better is it fine now to do it? Okay.
okay, I mean, the only, issue, there was some discussion as to the source of the funds, whether it was fund balance.
So we're going to use B fund balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a motion to?
I'll make a motion that we approve $6,300 for the doors for Hudson Valley Door and Hardware.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank
And
you.
then just for
Thank
the
you.
board's knowledge, should there be an insurance claim, that would be an income.
Right, it would be income, that's correct, and that's
Okay.
what Steve
So
said.
it's
Back to the B fund.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Done.
very good. Bill, you want to talk, first about what we've discussed, the SRO, and just
Sure.
our discussions with Neil Stewart and so forth.
I was a couple minutes late this evening because my wife had to attend the first parent-teacher meeting at Evans for my son, who's attending kindergarten there. So school has begun. This town took a position a number of months ago to work proactively to ensure that law enforcement has a presence in our elementary schools. There's currently, for this school year, thanks to Sheriff Kirk Imparati, a full-time school resource officer, permanent SRO at Wappingers Junior High School that had previously been different deputies until they could fill this with a permanent position. So that's now a permanent position. Royce C. Ketchum High School has a permanent school resource officer in position. The elementary schools were uncovered until this board acted and announced at the end of the previous school year that we would be working with the school district and the sheriff's office to ensure that law enforcement had a presence within the elementary schools. On the first day of school, I was there with my new kindergartner, and we had a sheriff's deputy present and a state police presence at both elementary schools just for day one, just because our position was that as parents are dropping their students off on the first day, we want them to see police officers present. We want them to understand that that is a priority in this town. And moving forward, we now have worked with the sheriff's office to provide for regular coverage within Evans Elementary School and Myers with deputy sheriffs. I'd like to thank Sergeant Mike Riley for being able to work the schedule properly to ensure coverage, and Station Commander Sergeant Brian Davidson from the State Police, who has also accommodated any requests that we have during these first days of school. Moving forward, I believe the supervisor, speaking with Dr. Bonk, wanted to set forth a commitment by resolution. Is that something that we have this evening?
Well, there's no formal resolution here.
So moving forward, there will be a resolution with respect to funding. We have received a commitment from the Wappingers Central School District to partner with us to provide for the school resource officer coverage, in addition to the town, where we have funding available within our town patrol line. We are now working with the school district and funding from the school district to also offset that cost. And we will have the details of that in a resolution before the town board.
So I think what I like the idea. I have no issues at all. I think what we ought to do is, as we get to the budget time, right, because we've already allocated money for 2023. Budget time, we got to make sure we do it for 2024.
Sure.
We have money in the budget today. We have a $250,000 budget for vandalism patrol, which is the money would come out of this. So there's quite a bit of money left over, so no problems with the SRO. But I think for planning purposes, just my opinion, you keep it as a separate line so we can show that we're doing, whatever the money is.
Yeah.
So my thought was within, and it's just historically, the legacy title is vandalism patrol, but that's just where it's always been called. You'll see in the budget there was a targeted traffic enforcement line that we had created a number of years ago.
Yeah, that doesn't have a lot of money in it. It's got
Right.
22,000, so it's...
That was really, at the time, to be focused on fire lanes, handicaps, and residential neighborhood stop sign enforcement. That was what we wanted to, we put it in as a titled line to show that commitment. I think what you're saying and what I'm saying is putting a titled line in there for the purposes of school resource officer.
Correct.
Is going to also obligate the town to fund it. And I agree with you, during budget time, if we can create that line, put that commitment in there, this way it appears within the budget with that title. Certainly, that's the direction we should go.
So right now, we do have enough money to cover through the rest of the year with the school district's commitment to cover one half
Sure.
of the cost. So we're covered quite well, and we wanted to just, Sergeant Stewart asked to just reconfirm that, so that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, so
tonight.
we're only about halfway through the budget. We're through September already, so we've got more than enough money to cover the expenses for this year.
We do, and Sergeant Stewart also should get a shout out. He's been involved in this, and this weekend, Jessica, myself, Sergeant Stewart. So there is a road race happening at Robinson Lane this Saturday. It's a 5K, Dutchess County Classic 5K and 1K, all right? Now, in the county, I'm dealing with the Sunday Dutchess County Classic Half Marathon and the 10K. But here in the town of Wappinger, the 5K has gone from 200 runners to, I think it's going to be over 500 runners. So dealing with Sergeant Stewart, they're going to require a road closure on Robinson Lane for about an hour or so while that 5K runs from Robinson Lane into East Fishkill, almost to 376, turns around and goes back. I had my staff at the county put up a variable message board to tell the residents that there's going to be, expect a closure that morning. But I want to thank Sergeant Stewart because right now at this moment, he's still working on staffing to ensure that we have 2 units there to do an effective road closure just for that short time period. So that's going to be going on also.
Plus, he's been working hard with respect to Community Day Carnival as
Sure.
well as making sure we're
So the
covered.
other-
There's a lot going on.
I think it's important that the residents know this is not going to affect the coverage that is provided to the town residents.
No, not at all.
In fact,
Everything
we're
is,
getting-
I just want to reassure them of that we will still have the police coverage that we have right now.
This is above and beyond the patrols that we have.
In
Right.
fact, we have increased some of the patrols.
Sure.
Yeah,
requests
from last
because
year,
of-
we did
yeah.
increase it.
But also right now, we're adding some more based on some.
So the
recent-
other thing I will tell you too is Supervisor shared with us the sheriff's reports that we get. And we actually saw some of the indications on the back of the sheets. They are patrolling the schools, as you said.
Yes.
So we started to see that May, June, et cetera. So that's a good thing.
One of the vulnerabilities with school safety is after-school activities, right? So you can have an SRO assigned to a school, but when school ends, those school resource officers leave, right? So there are vulnerabilities associated with schools after school. Doors are not always locked, right? Because their kids are going out to the fields and coming back. You have kids on the field, you have kids over here, you have mask and mime in the theater, you have a whole bunch of stuff going on. And we have identified that as a vulnerability, not only in the town, but countywide. And we've asked police patrols in this town specifically, when you're out doing your normal patrols, to have a presence in those schools after school so that you're visible and you're available. So I'm glad that they are notating that on those sheets.
Yes.
Yep. There.
Okay,
Any
thank
other
you.
comments?
Just based on Councilman Beal's comment regarding the road closure on Robinson Lane, I think just for purposes of the record and ease of enforcement, I think if we get a resolution at the town board to authorize closure of Robinson Lane, do you know the hours?
So it's going to be between 8:30 and probably 10. And I'm saying closure, it's really not officially closed. It's
Okay.
basically a police
Local
officer on
traffic
each one. If somebody lives on the street, they're going to help them get to their house,
So it's
but
going to be no through traffic?
no through traffic for a short time period. Jessica, have any more on that?
Yeah, so I think the only time that it is going to be a 100% full closure is when the kids are doing the Kids Mile, because they don't want anybody
Right.
going through there when the
Do you
kids
know
are
what
running.
time that is going on?
I believe that was
That-
9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 8:30 or 9, but the 1K
Yeah.
kids run is like 100 kids.
Yeah.
The real challenge was the 5K was about 200, but now it's probably going to be 500 based on, and 500, that's a lot to be running down the road. Just for put things in perspective, on Sunday, the half marathon and 10K that's starting at Dutchess Community College and going to the rail trail to the walkway is going to have over 1,000. So that's going to require a closure on Creek Road as well. So that being said, I don't know if this would be by definition a complete roadway closure, because if it was going to be at that level, I think we would have done some sort of a resolution for that. I think, yeah.
No, I just,
And road races traditionally, and this always makes me nervous, they like to run on the road while the road's still open, and I've always kind of had a problem with that, and we've used law enforcement across the county to make it safer. So that's what.
yeah, no, the reason why I say that is because, in the past where, whoever's enforcing the closure has said, that there's no prohibition in place to enforce.
Right, there's not going to be any penal aspect to this.
Right.
That this is just a safety thing, and
Okay.
if somebody needs to get to their house, or if they got to get out of their driveway, they're going to assist them with doing that. It's not one of those, hard closures.
Okay.
It's a soft closure, let's just say that, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, please.
okay, very good. Any further discussion? If not, Bill, I'll notify Sergeant Stewart. You can, with respect to the SRO, I'll tell, Dwight Bonk as well.
Sure.
But,
It's just the challenge right now, as you can imagine, is just staffing.
Yeah.
We have a great relationship with the sheriff's office, and the staffing is always a challenge for additional personnel to do details, right? Because they still have to do the normal road patrols. So we're working on phasing that in more regularly, more hours as it goes. But I will speak to him.
Yeah, and I'll do that too.
Thank
So,
you.
Okay, let's move into the resolutions. First resolution, 2023-110, resolution creating Climate Smart Communities Task Force and Climate Smart Communities Coordinator. We discussed that last time. Also, it's a very important check off the box with respect to our grants and, funding, including what we talked about earlier.
I nominate Councilman Phillips to be our czar.
Okay.
Is this real?
Yep.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, motion second, that's amendment to the current resolution, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. So with respect to and then I think the councilman can then recommend a committee,
Yes.
to the
Help
board.
him.
So, do I have a motion on the resolution?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you. That's
Congratulations.
great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Climate master.
Okay.
No EVs.
Next
I got
item.
an EV.
Resolution 2023-97, resolution authorizing payment in lieu of taxes agreement with Old Myers NY LLC. Jim, you were going to do some
Yeah,
discussions.
so with the holiday, Labor Day holiday, we haven't I've had some emails back and forth with respect to council, but we haven't finalized it yet, so,
So we need to
Table
table
it.
this one again?
Table.
To table?
yeah.
Table
I'll
it.
make a motion to table.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Okay. Next item is Resolution 2023-112, resolution authorizing water tenancy agreement for 693 Wheeler Hill Road.
Table.
I think to Bill's point, he said we were going to set town policy on these two.
Well, it's not on these two. So my position is we need to come up with a policy or a consensus among the board on how we're going to proceed on these before we vote on these particular, any of them, to be honest with you.
So do you want to either table these?
Or do you want to, what's the best way to do it? Can we deny it now and let him come back in, or do you table it?
I
What
would
do you
move
do?
to table these, to be honest with you.
All right.
I mean, so,
Can we do a withdrawal
Yeah,
then?
can you withdraw?
Why
Yeah,
don't
but
we-
why, who placed them on the agenda? That should be the person that withdraws.
I did, but I'm not going to withdraw.
Yeah, so then I'll just move to table for now.
Yeah.
The problem is,
Second.
then, we're not going to be ready in 2 weeks, because all this
No.
does is just move forward every 2 weeks. So you got to adjourn it to, or table it to a later date, until we actually have a workshop session.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, you can table a resolution, and when we're ready to discuss it,
Yeah.
we bring it back. I understand it may appear on the agenda, but once
don't
it's
want-
tabled, it's tabled.
Yeah, I know, but then it comes up the next meeting, it's tabled again and tabled again. We're not going to have a solution on the
No,
25th.
I agree.
Again, I'm going to move to table. You guys can do what you want to do.
I agree.
Motion to table.
Can we
Second.
table with
Well,
a
table to
specific
what day,
date?
though?
Can
you
we
can
table
it
with
to a
this?
specific day if you wish.
Okay,
yeah.
so we'll table this to at least December 2023.
Point of order, I have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
no
sorry.
before it. There's a second.
That's what I'm thinking.
Motion is second.
Second.
What? So what, the motion is
So-
you're tabling it, and Angela's tabling it until after December?
She
Yeah.
can, there's a second. All right, so let's talk parliamentary procedure. So there's a second on my motion. She can make another motion to table with a more
specific date?
She has the right to do that.
Okay,
So are you doing that?
I'm doing that.
All right, and
So
I'll
then
second
She needs
it.
a second on that.
I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Done.
So wait, what was your, hold on, what was your motion, though? What was your motion?
To postpone this until December 2023. Because we can have the specific date.
She just put a date on it.
I put a date on it.
All right,
Because we're not going to be ready.
I don't object
Let's be
to that.
honest. Yeah, there's no way we're going to be ready.
We're just doing the dance up here.
Yes.
You know. So
The
now-
waltz.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay.
Okay.
Okay, motion passes. And we're doing it for both of them?
Yeah,
Yes.
so
Come on. Yep,
I'll make a
yield to-
motion that we table on this one
yep.
to December of 2023.
Second.
Okay, motion to table, no, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And nay for me.
Yep.
The rest are aye. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so it's tabled.
Then we go to, what is it, 14?
Okay, Resolution 2023-114, this is a resolution authorizing a memorandum of understanding with Regency homeowners. This is something we've discussed, had meetings on. Mike Tremper, they've ratified it. So I
Sorry.
think it's, they're conserving significant amount of water as a result of our relationship and undertaking.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I've talked to Mike Tremper about it,
Yeah.
and they've gone to considerable lengths to conserve money, water. Is there a mechanism in here that we could shut it off for drought?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
That's my
And
biggest
also if the town
concern.
were to readjust rates and so forth.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So you move
Is
it?
there a motion second?
I'll make that
I'll
motion.
second it.
Okay,
Second.
motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Okay, the next item is Resolution 2023-103, resolution authorizing appointment of senior account clerk, Jessica. And maybe we look at, we'll do a mad seriatim, the different resolutions, so you can just stay up there, I think is my
Okay.
point. Go
Yep.
ahead.
So the first one's for the senior account clerk. I think we discussed it last week regarding Regina Dowsett, moving her from account clerk to senior account clerk.
I thought that we went into executive session last time. I don't know if there's still any questions on this one. Is this something that's required by the county at this rate, or is it something that's, because I don't want to go into a lot of details here, again, because it's more personnel related, so,
No, but it's appropriate for here, not necessarily appropriate for executive session, so I think it's appropriate to discuss anything other than what might be a personal rate, or in
well, that's what I was talking about,
consideration
the
for
rate in particular. So is that something you can discuss here, or you go in executive session for?
Well, I think the last rate of the last employee was in a resolution. I think according to, if we paid her, the last employee, that rate by resolution, I think I actually have it printed, it was 20, I can find it in a second. And then that employee got the contractual Teamsters increase, which I think was 4.25 or 4.5 in January. So that's how the rate got this high. I think if we used any other rate, we're gonna have a problem with the union because we gave it to this employee. Why wouldn't we give it to this employee?
So you pay the position. The position is a competitive position that she is qualified as for senior account clerk title, is that correct?
Yes.
And she would be a permanent appointment in that title, or is this provisional?
It's not provisional because she has passed the test.
So permanent?
I think it can go as probationary though. Well, yeah, she has to serve the 6-month probation.
So permanent, subject to 6-month probation. The rate is determined by the collective bargaining agreement.
Here's some information.
Thank you, Siri, but I wasn't speaking to you.
That would be a yes.
They're always listening to you.
Yeah, that's correct.
So with respect to this position and this rate, it's consistent with the collective bargaining agreement and civil service. So I will move it.
Is there a second? Not I second it. Okay,
Roll
all
call.
in favor? That's-
Roll call.
Okay, roll call.
Councilman Beal.
Aye.
Councilwoman Deteen.
No.
Councilman Phillips.
No,
I'm sorry, that's what?
no.
Councilman Casella.
No.
And Supervisor Thurston.
Yes.
The motion failed.
Okay.
Next one?
Sure. This is just acknowledging a new employee that was hired by the highway department.
I'll move this.
Second.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes.
Okay, and just to be consistent, the title that this individual is being put in is MEO, Motor Equipment Operator. It's a civil service, non-competitive title, correct?
Yes.
And the rate is established by the respective union.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
And they have a step, so
Gotcha.
he comes in at step 1.
Okay, thank you.
So the armed court officer.
Yep, so we have the armed corps officer. We did briefly, well, discuss via email. Our court officer was put in place as a resolution from 2013 by the town of Wappingers. It's not actually a civil service title.
It is a civil service title, just not in.
Dutchess
so
County?
It's not in the local system, which is kind of weird. The Office of Court Administration, by constitution, has a separate civil service
Right.
system. So the court officers, the judges, clerks, except for the ones in justice court, for whatever reason, but if you're in the higher courts, they're subject to the OCA civil service system. What we use here is we use uniformed OCA court officers, gone through the academy, trained, most of them have decades of experience, and they do in our court what they do in Supreme Court or City Court. They're all armed, they're all qualified, they're peace officers by statute. And Judge Wolfson, back in prior to using these people, we had sheriff's deputies who had served, but they were being used on overtime. And Judge Wolfson had discussions with OCA and brought them on board at a substantial savings to the town. However, after we adopted the resolution, Dutchess County came back and said, they're not in civil service. Now, the odd thing was, they've passed tests, they've gone to academies, they were all certified as armed court officers. Because of this quirk, first they had said, well, we could designate them as constables. However, we are a town of the first class. Town of the first class by statute cannot have constables. We can only have a police force. Right now, Jessica had suggested and provided the job description for court attendant. Court attendant, it doesn't say one way or another whether they have.
It's silent to the firearm.
It's silent as to whether or not they carry guns, but basically it's the duties that they do. And we're working with county civil service and perhaps with state civil service to get the title added. Or we may ultimately, one of the other options is perhaps enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the Office of Court Administration to allow them to work. But
This is all housekeeping stuff. That
it's
doesn't.
all
Yeah.
bureaucracy.
It
but-
doesn't even matter. The
And all
bottom.
we're doing is acknowledging
Right, yeah.
the hiring because it's not our
Well,
appointment.
technically, it is your appointment
Wow.
with the
Now,
consent of the justice.
The bottom line is,
We need to do it.
we love the sheriff's office. We had a great relationship in the courts. However, it was difficult for staffing. It was more expensive just based on their contract. When we went to the when we went to the New York State Office of Court Administration court officers, we've had a great relationship. These are seasoned professionals. They are prepared for something that could go wrong. They're very well qualified. And whatever we need to do on your end to, tie it up in a nice bow, that's fine. But I'll move this resolution.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes.
So, Joe, for the record, we're going to change the title to court attendant,
So court attendant would be the,
part-time,
part-time court attendant would be the Dutchess County Civil Service title,
until we change it,
which we are using New York State Office of Court
Current.
Administration
personnel.
armed
Okay.
court officers. Thank you. Oh,
Okay.
here's another one.
So this is a resolution for hiring a clerk for the court justice.
Yes. So yeah, hiring a clerk to the town justice. I think the actual resolution right now says the person's supposed to start September 25th. After this was drafted, I believe Justice Kitchen asked if she could change that to September 18th.
Move it.
Second.
So I'll change it with, but you got to update the resolution so that the resolution says September 18th for
Right.
September
Oh, it was
25th.
changed in time.
So with
Wait, hold
that,
on, I got 25th here.
yeah, I know, so she just said the 18th.
Oh.
So we're changing it now, so we're
Yeah,
amending
somebody's
the
got to move
resolution.
to amend it then.
Yeah, so I'm making a motion to amend it to the
Alice,
18th,
and then we're gonna
and then I'll make
second
them, first, go ahead, you got
Got
it.
it.
Motion, there's second, a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
And then I'll make a
Any nays or
motion to approve it
abstentions?
with the amendment.
Right.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Next item is Resolution 2023-118, resolution authorizing revocable license agreement to maintain structures within utility easement.
So, this is a request from the property owner at 27 Miracle Circle.
Yep.
And so the property owner has easements basically on all four sides of the property. They had erected a fence in the easement. The easement is a utility and drainage easement. One of the things that came up is that, which we have to look at when we're doing subdivisions going forward. We take an irrevocable offer of cession with respect to the easements, but we do not record the easements until such time as the improvements are accepted by the town, particularly the road. The road here has not been accepted yet. So the easement was not recorded and did not show up in the title policy of the person who bought the property. There are notes on the plat, and there are some, there's notes on the subdivision plat, and there's provisions in our code, which talk about no obstructions or permanent structures. With respect to fences, we do not require a building permit to put up a fence. The other thing that's on this property is a playset, which again, under New York State Uniform Code, does not require any building permits either. The easement that's filed with the irrevocable offer of cession, which was recorded, was not signed, and it provides that structures may be maintained within the easement, provided that they do not interfere with the easement, and they are approved by the town board. Here, the property owner has indicated that they would be willing to take down the fence, allow the installation of and also the developer of the subdivision needs to get access to the easement to put in a water line to service one lot, which was built after the other one, and it's behind the lot where the fence is currently existing. So the property, Levine and Levine represents the property owner. I had discussions with the attorney. They indicated that since the easement was not recorded in their title policy, that should this not be granted, they would probably bring litigation against their title company regarding not disclosing that in their policy, which would then probably force the title company to implead the town as a defendant. So this is a reasonable, I believe, a reasonable accommodation to avoid litigation. I understand it, it can set a precedent, but again, it's with respect to a fence, and the revocable license provides that the town is indemnified. The fence is removed at their cost and expense. They have to put it back. The town bears no cost of putting it in. And should it be, should the town need to get in and fix a water main break or something in the future, that they would provide access again in the future. And again, should the fence have to come down, the town, has the right to take it down in the case of an emergency, and there's no obligation on the part of the town.
So
Jude,
I have
if you have,
just a simple question, because this is what happens in the town. Say the highway's got to get out there to clear the drainage easement, and they damage the fence. Is the town liable at all?
Nope.
Okay.
And this really isn't a drainage easement. This is
Because
really.
that's what happens. You know that.
Yeah. This really isn't a drainage easement. This is really because of the way the Miracle Circle is actually, there's a stormwater basin on the opposite side of the property, or I should say on the opposite side of the road, where, again, the drainage easement, because there's a swale and there's riprap and things, and that's a more difficult situation, because again, if you've got a fence in the middle of a drainage swale, it's going to affect the flow within the swale. Here, this is for the installation of utilities that go from Miracle Circle across this property and serves the property from the rear, which is the way it was laid out in the subdivision. And the developer didn't install this main or this service connection until after the other lots were built and sold. So, so it's kind of a one-off. You know, the town in the past, as it has done, there's off of Regency, somebody had put a garage in, which the town granted a revocable license, years ago. The revocable license, again, also indicates that, should it be destroyed or damaged, they can't put it back up without approval of the town.
Yeah,
So I'd like-
we've done these
But
before.
Judith, you have
Look
some
here from
comments, because
Judith.
there's some issues, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that on October 6th of 2021, I did provide the Blondins with a memorandum of violation regarding the fact that they did construct a shed in the easement. They also were in violation of the utility and drainage easements. Jim, I'd just like to point out that Chris Sausalito and John Getz did provide me an email in October of 2021 where there was a swale behind Lot 7, which is 27 and 8, and the swale terminating at a drainage stub pipe located between lots 8 and 9, which is, if you're in the rear of the property facing, it's the property to your right. The utility easement is the easement that runs on 27, which is Lot 7, and on Lot 8. The swale is in a drainage easement. This is the pipe they're talking about, and there is a swale. And then on the left of 27, which is Lot 7, there is another utility easement. The violation was reissued several times. I spoke to Mrs. Blondin several times. I insisted that every other property out there remove the structures or whatever they were going to put in the easement, and in fact they did. So this has been ongoing since 2021. On August 24th of 2023, you received a letter from Levine and Levine on behalf of the Blondins requesting this. I'd like to point out that your revocable license states that Section 4 of the grant utility and drainage easement provides that the owner is prohibited from maintaining permanent structures. I'd also say that you say that in this revocable license that the owner inadvertently constructed a fence. I spoke to them several times. Every other property owner knew. They surveyed that the Blondins themselves provided to us from Levine and Levine clearly shows a hand-drawn fence, which is in fact, in my opinion, since that we don't have a survey and this is chosen to be given to us hand-drawn, that this fence is actually in the swale. So in going to your point, I believe since the property behind them, the Camachos, had problems with drainage, and that Chris and John had to go out and make sure that this was clear and that the swale was maintained, I would suggest that we cannot allow this, that we do not have a survey showing where this fence actually is. And although it may not be interfering, if we had to get into the utility easement, we could easily take it down. My concern is that every other property was told and complied. This clearly, in my opinion, is in the swale. It's going to produce a problem with drainage. We've made everybody else take it out, and the Camachos have already had a problem. They had planted bushes. We insisted that they move the bushes back. So at this point, I would say on behalf of the building department, because we worked with every other property owner and they were in compliance, I would ask that we do not grant this. I would ask that we do not grant this until, if we are to reconsider it, we have a survey showing exactly where this fence is, and we know exactly what kind of problems it is going to cause, because again, with the information I have, I believe this is in a part of a drainage easement, not just the utility easement.
Are there any current enforcement actions going on the property?
They have a violation. They've had it since 2021.
All right, then.
It has been reissued
Hold on.
several times.
If there's any enforcement actions on the property, my position is we take no action on this.
Well, this is in essence designed to cure the enforcement action.
Right, but is the enforcement action that's active right now something that's connected to this
Yes.
situation?
Yes, my understanding is that when I issued this violation I started in October of 2021. Since that point, and I have an email from Mrs. Blondin advising me that her lawyer is talking to our lawyers and they're working this out.
Well, here's our lawyer.
Did
I
they
understand
contact
that.
you?
They kind of previously were in contact with Paul Ackerman.
Oh.
So I took this over from Paul Acker.
Well, I think there needs to be more discussion between legal on both sides. I don't think we're in a position as a town board to issue any sort of revocable license agreement at this moment in time. And, I kind of wish these types of conversations would happen during business hours prior to getting to the dais. Thank you.
So, with respect to this, there is one wrinkle, and it's that the developer was seeking to put a water line through that easement. So, he was the one who was, interested in doing it, so.
Well, I think Judith,
Mr.
can work
Macho,
this.
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Mr. Macho is in contact with me on a daily basis. Certain contractors do their thing, and we may not always agree with it. In this case, he's being held up by the Blondins. In this case, we have been issuing them violations and talking to them since 2021. I would suggest, if it's within our legal rights, to tell them they must take the fence down. We must allow him to do his job that we gave him rights to do, and at some future time, we will have this discussion of where that fence can go. In the meantime, I would respectfully ask that we ask for a survey that shows exactly where that fence is, and then discuss where it can go without interference on our end. And I would think that that would be our stand on that. And Mr. Macho should not be held up to get that water line is. That's not all right. They put the fence in, they knew well aware, they were given the survey that they themselves drew on, they knew that the easements were there. So it's not on on Mr. Macho that they have a fence in the easement. I think we should ask them to take it down, that we will negotiate what we're gonna negotiate as to where that fence can go back up, but in the meantime, let him do what he needs to do. We're holding him up, which again, he could bring a suit. So I think we have to look at what's right here, and they are wrong. They have a violation. They have a fence in the easement. Whether we let them put it back up or not is a subject, to be discussed, but Mr. Macho should not be held up for this.
I agree with Judith.
I agree.
Table.
Motion to table.
Second.
Motion and to table, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes.
Just
Table,
one
but
question,
go.
with respect to Miracle Circle. What's holding up the road from being accepted?
Compliance
Compliance with what?
with the stormwater pond. There's several other issues.
Okay. I'm just asking, I always ask these questions in September of each year when students, you can't have a bus going down a road that's not been officially dedicated yet. And this has been a long time on this one. You have occupied homes on the street, and buses and US Mail are being left at the corner because of this, so.
And the discussions have been after repeated
Right.
internal
This is not our
discussions and
only-
consultants going out
Okay.
there ad nauseum.
Oh, I'm sure
This is
there's
not
more
our-
to the
yeah.
story.
This
I don't
is
want to
not
get
our
it.
only one.
Okay, thank you very much for your hard work.
All right,
Appreciate
and
it.
I just might ask that at this point, Jim, if you could discuss with me, and I don't know if the board needs to be involved, how we let Mr. Macho continue on with what he needs to do.
It's up to the Blondins.
Yeah, so I think we can discuss it outside of
All right.
the meeting
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next resolution is 2023-119, resolution adopting Town of Wappinger COVID policy. Jessica discussed that this is after our previous discussion that you
Yes.
worked on it.
So this one is just for employees. We needed to, the New York State COVID leave has not expired, so we needed a policy on how to implement that when more cases come about, which there has been a recent rise, so it's probably going to become a when, not an if.
But right now, we're talking about what's before us here, and it's simple.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's actually.
You made it more neutral.
Yeah, it's more neutral, the type of masks that are needed. We changed it from N95 to just a quality mask. And it's following CDC policy at this time and the New York State COVID law. Leave.
I have no objection to it. Again, they are seeing an uptick. There is another vaccine that's out there. It's a personal medical decision for one to decide. What I would ask, again, on the town side is let's just keep our eyes open and make sure that no one is coming into that senior center that has an illness. No employees are coming in that are sick, right? It's very important, especially in the senior center, that they understand that if they are sick, they should not be coming in there. I know at this point it sounds cliche, but it's very
No,
important.
but there have been some cases, and it's being monitored very closely. Jessica working with, well, the two Jessicas working together, and Donna.
Is there more than just 611A here that's a one-page summary? Is there more, or is that
No,
it?
that's it.
This is it for this one.
So, I know you spouted off pretty quick, the changes. I'd just like to understand the changes we have today versus what you're talking about implementing now. So what are those changes? It's
So I
so much
don't know
different.
that you ever had a formal policy. I found a memo from 2021, January of 2021, so pretty early on in the pandemic, really, regarding the procedures.
To back her up, I looked at some of the old town board resolutions. There was a COVID policy, telecommuting policy.
Correct.
Regarding, reporting to work, but I don't know if there was ever.
There is a pandemic response plan that was statutorily required by the
Right.
state to be filed by each municipality. I think it's a 30,000-foot plan. I don't think it gets into the
Yeah.
very specific policies that are identified here. Now, the biggest issue that we're seeing, even in county government, is folks say, well, what do I do? I'm vaccinated, I don't have symptoms, but my significant other has COVID, right? Those are the types of questions you get. This policy specifically identifies what to do if you're exposed to COVID-19, whether you're vaccinated or not, right? What you do if you test positive for COVID-19, regardless of vaccination status, we're stating very specifically what you are to do. And
Right.
I didn't realize that the COVID time, I guess, still exists within government where people.
New York State, not-
In New York State, you can still get paid to be home.
Which I think is important that employees know, because they might not want to use their sick time, but if they know that's option. And regarding what you said, what do you do? My son was exposed back in August, and when I found out, I was like, what do I do?
Right.
Like, do I go to work? And if I didn't know, I
Right.
don't know who else knew.
So is the county making policy changes at all, Bill?
Yes,
This is consistent with CDC standards and practices, but understand that over the period of 3+ years now, there have been changes to the CDC standards and practices. This is the most recent, up-to-date protocol that should be followed.
So this is what the county's doing too?
Correct.
Okay,
So I will move this.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions?
No.
No,
You're voting no?
I'm voting no.
Okay, 2 noes and 3 yeses. Okay, then the motion passes. Okay, next item is Resolution 2023-120, proclamation of Hispanic Heritage Month in the town of Wappinger. This is what we passed in the
I
past.
move it.
Okay,
Second.
motion and second, all in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Next item is standard resolution in the sense that we must adopt it to set the budget, process in place. Resolution 2023-121, resolution scheduling town board meetings to adopt budgets for fiscal year 2024 based off of actually almost identical to the previous resolution.
All right, I do have a change I want to make on here.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at, on page 2, where it says adopt preliminary budget for 2023 and schedule public hearing, preliminary budget date on November 6th, I want to change that to November 13th.
It can't be.
Yeah.
It has to be on or before the Thursday after Election Day.
Okay, that's fine, then, so let's make it, that's Monday, make it whatever it is, the 9th.
Yeah, November 9th.
November 9th then.
Yeah.
What day of the week is that?
That's,
Thursday.
That's the latest it can be.
It says here, it just may be adjourned until November 17th. Is that a
No, it can be adjourned, but it has to be held and opened.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the public hearing.
Okay, so we open it and just,
Right.
like
You
we
give
did
the
last
public
Got
the
it.
opportunity to
Right,
comment.
right.
Got it.
Excuse me.
So it can stay open until the 17th, and then the budget has
Right.
to be adopted by the 20th,
Right.
Right.
except if it's a Sunday or Saturday, then it's
It
to the next
moves or
business
something, yeah.
day.
So the other odd date is October 4th, right?
And that's the statutory
Yeah.
date by which the supervisor, or the town clerk has to present the
And that's what we've
supervisor's
done
budget
each
to the
year,
town
and it's a
board.
simple
That's
thing
the
just-
5-minute meeting that
just-
we have
Yeah.
every year.
All right, so
That's-
can I respectfully request, since that's the meeting we walk into, we
Right.
get the budget and then we
Right.
leave,
Right.
Yes.
can I respectfully request that we do that at 7:30 instead of 7, so that I can actually see my son's T-ball game?
I
that's
have no
fine.
Yeah,
problem
I
with that.
can't do it, but, you know, I mean,
7:30?
I'll pick it up before. But
Yeah,
I
we're
can't
just
do
going to
then.
pick it up. That's all we're doing that night.
Yeah.
So 7:30 on October 4th, if that's okay.
And again, all you need is a quorum, so you just need
Yeah.
3 people at the meeting.
Okay.
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 So do we need to make a change here for the resolution, so we change the date from November 6th to the
Yeah,
November
we'll
9th?
just amend the
Yeah,
resolution.
that-
I'll make a motion that we amend the resolution to make it special meetings on November 9th, Thursday.
Second,
That's the public hearing, that's the opening of the public.
Okay?
yeah.
Human Resources
Barbara,
was
do you
not
have
on-
any conflicts that night? Okay.
Human Resources was not scheduled a date, so can I just be added on the same
Yes, yeah.
day, the second day?
Yeah, the second one on the 23rd. Yeah,
Can we,
that's fine.
can we also codify the 7:30 start for the October 4th?
Okay.
For you, Bill? Sure.
So,
I appreciate it. I mean, Robinson Lane takes a few minutes to get to Town Hall.
Okay, so we have the
Two
three,
changes.
because we added
Right.
HR. Any other comments?
I'll second the amended motion.
SIO,
Okay.
yep.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Next item is Resolution 2023-122, resolution opposing delivery rate increases by Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation bill.
Move
That's-
it.
Yeah, if I can just open this up. You know, we talked about this at a previous meeting, the Central Hudson rate increases. You know, Central Hudson Gas and Electric is requesting an increase in annual electric delivery revenues of about $139.5 million. That's 31.6% increase in the base delivery revenues, or 13.3% increase in total system revenues, compared to the revenues approved in the Rate 3 of the company's current rate plan. This is a significant increase. In fact, on the Public Service Commission's website, the memo that addresses this particular increase, the subject is proposed major revenue increases for rate year ending June 30th, 2025. This has an adverse effect on the residents of this town, especially those that are on fixed incomes, those that have fiscal challenges. You will be seeing, according to this proposal, and again, this has to be approved by the Public Service Commission, a 31.9% increase on the delivery bill, or 16.4% increase on the total bill for the average residential customer using 660 kilowatt hours per month. That's the average customer. And I've often talked about the cost of the energy versus the delivery charge. When you look at this proposal, you're seeing a 31.9% increase. That is significant. Central Hudson is stating the major drivers of the electric revenue request include increases in related to capital investment, mainly associated with replacing aging infrastructure, increased labor expenses, continued and enhanced low-income programs, energy-efficient heat pump programs, increases due to capitalization and finance costs, and timely recovery of costs associated with responding to major storms and extreme weather. New Yorkers already pay between 30 and 35% more for electricity than others in the United States. And this is just totally unsustainable on the electric side. On the gas side, Central Hudson's requesting an increase in the annual gas delivery revenues of about $41.5 million, 29.8% increase in base delivery revenues, or 14.2% increase in total system revenues compared to the revenues approved in the rate year 3 of the company's current plan. What does that mean? The requested increase in gas delivery revenues results in a monthly bill increase of about 29.2% on the delivery bill, or a 19% increase on the total bill. So this is not simply a double-digit increase. You're talking 30% increases. I've talked about this for 3 years at this dais, that this moment was going to come. We've taken a position as a town at least 3 times in the last 10 years expressing our discontent with these increases. It is simply unsustainable. Central Hudson talks about the closing of Indian Point. Central Hudson talks about the Dan Scammer permits being pulled. Central Hudson talks about the New York State energy policies that are creating this scenario. I have said this for 3 years. It's totally unsustainable. Albany is driving much of this, and we now, at the grassroots level, have to face this. And many folks don't have the ability to afford gas and electric today, before this increase. It's unsustainable. We put together a resolution that I'm not going to read. It articulates the points that I just made here. This town board will hopefully take this position unanimously tonight. Certified copies of the resolution will be delivered by the town clerk to Michelle Phillips, the Secretary of the New York State Public Service Commission, Senator Rob Rollison, Assemblyman A.J. Bepan, as well as chief executives of surrounding municipalities served by Central Hudson. Again, this is a total unsustainable plan, and we hope to lobby for the Public Service Commission to defeat this approach. Not to mention, this is in the wake of the billing issues that went on for 2 years.
Still going on.
And for some folks are still going on. In fact, we just got a bill
Yes.
for our Houstonville electric
Yes,
bill for
lighting district.
the street lighting district, which was a significant increase. And I don't understand, this doesn't make sense to me. We have changed from the less efficient Cobra head streetlights to the more efficient LED streetlights, right? And the rates continue to rise at an unprecedented rate. We have continued to purchase energy-efficient appliances. My house specifically, all energy-efficient appliances, everything's LED. Any way we possibly can save energy, including have an electric vehicle. Yes, I do. We do. But our electric and gas bill has doubled. It's unsustainable. I don't know where we go here in New York State. This is just, there is no end in sight to the policies of the New York State legislature and the governor's office and the Public Service Commission that are creating this scenario. It is trickled down from Albany. We have to do all we can do to prevent this. It is outrageous. I'll move this resolution.
I'll
Bill,
second.
I'd like to propose a small amendment.
Sure.
And at the very end, also Congressman Pat Ryan.
Sure.
For a certified copy.
Certainly.
Okay, with that in mind, then.
So, Bill, motion, I'll second.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
So, just for the record, the town board adopted a resolution opposing the last increases that were proposed in 2021, January 25th, 2021. Those rate increases at that time was 8.4% in base delivery revenues and 5.1% in total system revenues. And then on the gas side, 6.2, on the gas side it was 12% in base delivery and 7.7% in system revenues.
Now we're talking 30% on both sides, which is totally unsustainable. And when you look at the delivery charges in New York State as compared to other states, there are some states that actually have laws that prevent this type of thing from happening. I believe it's the state of Maryland that does not allow these utility companies to have these double-digit increases in rates except X number of years, I believe, it has to come up. This is just totally unsustainable and outrageous, and I believe I have a motion on the floor.
Good.
And it's
It's already
been
approved,
approved.
actually. It's
Yeah,
already
it's
approved.
already approved.
Thank you. And let's post it on the website, too, so everybody can
Yep,
read it.
will do.
Thank you.
Okay. Next resolution, 2023-123, acknowledgement of the correspondence log.
Move.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Next item is items for special consideration, new business. You want to, Bill, on the first responder?
Yes, so first, thank you for those that were able to attend the September 11th service at Sergeant Palmatier Memorial. That was well attended for a weekday. I mean, you never can tell when it's on a weekday and it's kind of rainy out, who's going to come. And thank you to the entire town board for again being present for that service. That means a lot. That doesn't happen in every town. Also, thank you to the emergency services that were able to be present, and of course, the public who have attended and supported that particular memorial, and the efforts of this town to remember September 11th, which is always a dark day. Moving ahead to Sunday at 6 p.m. here at Town Hall will be the 7th Annual Town of Wappinger First Responder Awards. The public is invited to attend this service that we have done for actually 8 years, but it's the 7th annual because of COVID. It fell right in the middle of it. But we will be recognizing a significant number of firefighters, Mercy Medical Service personnel. We're going to be recognizing deputy sheriffs. We're going to be recognizing police officers from the village of Wappingers Falls. And somehow, we're also going to be recognizing town of Poughkeepsie police officers who apprehended a subject from a town of Wappinger crime. And that's going to be a first for us. So Empress, town of Wappinger EMS, also going to be recognized. So I invite the town board. A number of dignitaries have been invited. You've seen the emails. Many of them are coming. And the general public, of course, is invited to be here that evening, 6 p.m. On Sunday, we will rightfully so recognize those who went above and beyond the call of duty. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
I just have one. I think, Jessica, you need to speak about the park on Old Myers.
We can do it next time.
Okay.
Any other comments? Nope. If not, then I'd move to enter into executive session to discuss a financial proposal related to collective bargaining negotiations and a proposed acquisition of real property.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes.